Yeah, we're discovering a lot of economic problems in the East. Good, so people are trying to get away from that. Why else did people move out west? Lauren?
Like a fresh start.
Yeah, fresh start. Hey, they might think that, or they might have thought that they would have greater independence out west where there's not so much oppressing government. Okay, good. Here I have a star next to, well, first of all, Manifest Destiny was this idea that U.S. citizens were just destined or supposed to move out west and expand all the way toward the Pacific Ocean. And if something is ordained, it means that usually that God has a hand in it, which means that it takes the control out of the hands of the U.S. citizens. And so I put here that it helped, I think it helped many people to cover up any feelings of guilt about taking over Native American land or harming anybody else. Both now and also then, we still have this idea of manifest destiny for the United States. Can anybody think of like a present day example where a notion like this helps us to maybe not feel so badly about things that we're doing? If not manifest destiny, maybe another philosophical notion. Pretty sure. I happen to think of the phrase, war is inevitable. What does that mean? War is inevitable. Maddie?
Like, does it mean there's no way to avoid it?
Yeah. Yeah, it means there's no way to avoid it, that it's always been around and it always will be around. And I think that idea that war is inevitable makes it easier for us then to excuse ourselves when we do go into war, because we say, well, this is the way it has to be. There's no other way around it. Well, of course there's a way around it. We don't have to. We don't have to go kill people, but we do. We're choosing to continue that cycle. So, and sometimes obviously it's harder to prevent war, right? Because it is so embedded in our culture and also in the world's culture at large. So even if the United States didn't want to create war anymore, it would still be difficult for us because we'd have to either not have direct relations with other countries, that would be impossible. So it's one of those things that this idea of manifest destiny, it was very empowering for a lot of American citizens, but at the same time, it also did help us to cover up the fact that we were pushing out these Native American groups, we were taking over Mexican territory, and so, we were now using our power for our own advantage. So anyway, there's the expression like go west young man, go west young woman. Has anybody ever heard that expression before? Yeah, meaning like go and kind of set yourself free and go, look at these wide expanses of land and here's all these opportunities for you. And obviously we needed to take up the extra land because we were starting to become overpopulated in the East, so. Also, moving into the West, we discovered that there were a lot of other new natural resources that we could now use, and that helped to boost the rest of the United States economy. The land is very different out there, right? We have all those major mountain ranges, Sierra Nevada, the Cascades, the Rockies, and we didn't know that those were even there, so that made traveling out west a little bit difficult. And at first, we did make an initial effort to save some Native American land and boundaries, but even though the government tried to do that, settlers still pushed through and went, so we really didn't hold up our side of the bargain very well. They talk about two specific trails that were used for settlers to go out west, and the other day we talked about the Oregon Trail, and it's so famous that obviously we have computer games, right, that are meant to teach children about that. So this is the one that goes from, MS is the abbreviation for the state of Missouri. Missouri was kind of like the cutoff point for, so like, we're starting over around this area here. Here's Missouri, this orange, light orange state. And nothing to the west of Missouri had been settled yet. So this is all open Native American territory, and then we have Texas down here, and of course Mexico, which is just gaining its independence from Spain, right? So that's the reason why Mexico, we have a lot of Spanish speakers there, right? And we have all of this Spanish culture. So Mexico won its independence, and they still have this big territory up here with California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. And eventually we will get that territory as well. So anyway, so we have the Santa Fe Trail. This was a trail that settlers used to travel from Missouri over to New Mexico, and then they would go back. So it was a circular trail, meaning that the people who were going out there didn't intend to settle and stay. They just wanted to exchange goods and then head back to Missouri and to the eastern states. But the Oregon Trail was for people who actually did want to go all the way out to Oregon and settle. So this is very difficult, obviously, because they only had covered wagons and they had oxen to help pull, but obviously they didn't have cars or anything like that, so it was a little bit rough to get out there, and usually took months, if people even made it all the way out there. It took months and months. So really, really long time. Usually people ran out of supplies and all that stuff, just like in the game. We also have the group of Mormons, and Mormonism was a new religion at the time in the 1800s. Mormons were being persecuted in the East in the United States, and so they decided to head out west, and the largest group of Mormons settled in Utah. And a lot of people know that Utah is kind of known for being the big Mormon state. They have Brigham Young University out there, which is a big Mormon university. And then also during this time, Canada, we were able to settle all of our boundary lines with Canada. And of course, Great Britain had rule over Canadian territory at that time. So we were able to settle this pretty easily with Great Britain, which was nice, because obviously we hadn't been able to always peacefully settle things with Great Britain in the past. So this section also talks about Texas and its independence. Just kind of a couple of things, how Texas got its independence. So initially, Spain ruled over Mexico, right, the country of Mexico. But Mexico gets its independence in the early 1800s. Mexico owns what was called the Texas Territory, or current Texas. And Mexico realized that they were really doing a lot of good economic trade with U.S. citizens, so they wanted for U.S. citizens to settle in the Texas Territory. They wanted to still have reign over it, of course, but they wanted for American citizens to settle there because we could bring a lot to the table, economic-wise. But what happened was that when the U.S. citizens came down and settled there, they of course wanted to be able to do their own thing. They didn't want to be under Mexican rule. So that led to all these tensions. Another major tension was over slavery. Mexico had outlawed slavery already. But the U.S. hadn't, obviously. All of our southern states still allowed slavery. So Mexico was furious that some of the citizens coming down to Texas had slaves. They're like, you can't bring slaves in here. We don't allow this in our country. So that was one of the major factors that led to this Texan War, the Texan Revolution. Okay, can I erase this first board? I have everything. So continuing here from 3. Okay, so these tensions over who's going to rule over Texas territory and about slavery leads to this Texas Revolution. everybody has heard of the Alamo Ford down in Texas. It's a really popular tourist destination still, and it's a symbol of one of our first American freedoms, just like the Declaration of Independence is and the Constitution. So a man named Sam Houston was the leader of this Texas Revolution. So he and all of these U.S. citizen rebels basically overthrew the Mexican government, overthrew the Mexicans at what was called the Battle of the Alamo. So, and the Alamo was just like a fort that was built down there for U.S. protection. Then eventually, because we were able to defeat Mexico in that battle, Texas becomes an official state in the Union, or the United States, in 1845.
I did not have the thing through 3 down yet.
I didn't either.
Oh, that's okay, that's okay. Can you maybe look at somebody else's at the end of class?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is just the last section here, just a couple of points. Okay, so at this point, we're thinking that we're okay with Mexico, but we're not. Mexico is now furious that the U.S. has taken Texas territory. Also still furious that there's slavery going on so close to their own country's border. Okay. Then we have President Polk, who becomes our new U.S. president. And Polk thinks that going into a war with Mexico will benefit the United States not only to secure our hold over Texas, but also to gain us some other territories. So California, New Mexico, Arizona, those were still all Mexican territories at this point. So at first we try the diplomatic approach of offering Mexico money in exchange for California, New Mexico, and Texas. But Mexico doesn't want to sell to us. They reject our offer. So Polk decides to blockade the Rio Grande to cut off any kind of trade or immigration coming over into Texas. And the Rio Grande, of course, runs, I'll show you on the next one. It's the river that runs, right, it's actually like the natural border of the United States, southern United States, and the country of Mexico. So we end up going to war. We declare war on Mexico. And again, this war going into Mexico sparks controversy between our northern states and our southern states. Why wouldn't the northern states want to go to war with Mexico? Holly,
It's really large.
what's that?
It's really large, so they have like multiple flavors.
Okay, yeah, uh-huh, good. Mexico still is a large country, okay, and also was much more settled and older of a country than the United States. Good, what else, Marie?
Mexico doesn't believe in slavery.
Right, yeah, which the North doesn't believe in slavery either, so the North is thinking, oh my gosh, now Texas, this huge state, is going to become a slave state, we don't need that, right? The Union in the North is trying to outlaw slavery at this point, but can't, so, and obviously, any kind of war is very costly for many reasons, which we've already talked about before, but yeah, that was the main reason. The North did not want this other slave state joining, the country. Okay, I'll just put one last point here. Obviously, the US wins eventually. And we take over California, New Mexico, and like officially, we take over Texas now. So these all become US territories. And why was taking on California a pretty positive thing for us during this time? It's mentioned, it's the very last section of the book for the reading. Yeah, Olivia?
The gold rush in California.
Yeah, so we get California and we're like, oh great, and then it comes up that there's all this natural gold in California, and so that becomes another major reason why people start to migrate west. So after that time then, we have a pretty good hold on things, so Mexico just kind of backs off, and but it ruined our relationship with Mexico for obvious reasons, so. Okay, good, any questions? No? Yeah, Natty?
For the Alamo,
Mm-hmm.
I probably read this wrong, but did we lose the actual battle at the Alamo and then like later on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so yeah, you're right technically. Yes, the Alamo, like that came up twice. So the physical battle of the Alamo was lost by us, but then eventually the fighters from the Alamo used that as their slogan, like free the Alamo, and then they lead an attack on Mexico and eventually win. So the Alamo is still a symbol of us winning over Mexico, but yes, we lost a lot of battles initially because Mexico was an older country and had this strong army and everything, so it took us a while to get organized enough to finally defeat them. Excuse me. Good, any other questions? Okay, alright. You have a little bit of time. For people who didn't finish your notes, I can either give you my notebook to copy or if you want to look at somebody else's, but I'll go ahead and write tomorrow's assignment up on the board and you can get started on that. I'll leave this board up here for you guys. Section 4 of chapter 3. And then assessment numbers 1 and 4.
Miss Savage?
Yeah.
Will our next test be over chapter 3 and chapter 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's see here, looking at the calendar, I can tell you relatively when it will be. I have our next test scheduled for Friday the 18th. Right,
Okay.
which is not this Friday, but the next Friday. But we'll see. It'll kind of depend on if anything arises in the schedule that's unusual, then it'll be bumped back to the following week, but we'll shoot for that. Yeah,
Can I borrow your notebook?
yeah, absolutely. Hopefully you can read my handwriting here.